Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us this evening from the Australian Army is Major Aaron Kinleyside. Animals have been put to many uses in war, serving as transport, beasts of burden, messengers, protectors, mascots, and pets. They have played an important part in all wars in which Australians have been involved. Famously, of 136,000 Australian horses sent to the First World War, only one returned. After General Bridges died in May 1915 from a wound sustained at Gallipoli, his favourite horse, Sandy, returned to Australia, eventually finding a home here at the Australian War Memorial. While the donkey made famous by Simpson is perhaps the best known example of a beast of burden, mules were a constant demand to carry supplies to the front line. The Camel Corps was formed in the early years of the First World War. By late 1917, the Desert Mounted Corps had some 6,000 camels. The homing ability and navigational skills of carrier pigeons saw them used during the First and Second World Wars. Some were even awarded medals for gallantry. Working dogs were used by the Royal Australian Engineers in 1918, with sappers handling messenger dogs in the trenches of France. Search dogs were used from 1944 after the raising of the first Australian dog platoon. Mine detection and scout dogs were used in Korea and Vietnam, and explosive detection dogs were used to counter the threat of improvised explosive devices in Afghanistan. During the First World War, many Australians brought animals from home to the training camps in Egypt. When the war ended, they were donated to the Cairo Zoo. As late as the 1950s, it was said to have had the largest collection of Australian native animals outside of Australia. Since then, a selection of dogs, cats, goats, possums, rams, eagles, monkeys, turtles, and many more have acted as formal and informal mascots for Australian units. Today, on the National Day for War Animals in Australia, we commemorate the deeds and sacrifices of animals in war. We warmly welcome Mr. John King, President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch, and the delegation representing Fulbright Australia and the representatives of Viasat Australia who are attending this evening's ceremony. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that continue to serve, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, would you now stand and join in singing the National Anthem?
Our home
Those requiring a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Trooper Reginald Wallace Richardson. Reginald Richardson, known as Reg, was born on the 15th of December 1886, the eldest son of Henry and Margaret Richardson. He was born in Kerrang, Victoria, where his father owned a stock and station agent business. Reg was educated at the Kerrang State School and later went to Melbourne as an office clerk. He later returned to the country, working as a bookkeeper on Gone Station before moving to Queensland, where he worked on 2 different stations, gaining experience as a drover. In 1907, Reg's father took up land near Balranald in New South Wales. By now a thorough stockman, Reg moved there to help with the property. Reg Richardson enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force about 6 months after the war broke out in August 1914. His experience as a stockman saw him selected for the Light Horse. After a period of training in Australia, he left for overseas service with reinforcements to the 8th Light Horse Regiment. Trooper Richardson was first sent to Egypt, where the AIF trained in desert camps in preparation for the landing on Gallipoli. Although the Light Horse were initially considered unsuitable for fighting on the steep ground above Anzac Cove, rising casualties among the infantry meant that they were deployed in early May in 1915, leaving their horses behind. Richardson reached his regiment on Gallipoli on the 26th of May 1915, as the long stalemate that followed the landing set in. To break the stalemate, a series of operations were planned for early August. The 8th Light Horse Regiment was to participate in this offensive by attacking a German position known as the Neck on the 7th of August 1915. The attack was a disaster, with wave after wave of Australians mown down by Turkish machine guns. Trooper Reg Richardson failed to return after the attack on the Neck, but it took some time for his family in Australia to discover what had happened to him. Eventually, Captain Hoare of the 8th Light Horse replied to a letter sent by Reg's mother and was able to confirm that Reg was in the first wave of the men to go over at the Neck. He was last seen throwing bombs on the Turkish trench. There was no chance that he had survived the battle. Captain Hoare wrote, "Private Richardson was, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best men in the 4th Reinforcements of the 8th Light Horse. I always found him a willing worker and never hoped to replace him." He ended his letter by writing, "All I can say is that no men on the peninsula could have died a braver death than Private Richardson, and you have every reason to be proud of him." The 8th Light Horse Regiment was withdrawn from the front line, and organising the burials of the fallen proved difficult. After the armistice in 1918, work began to build a cemetery at the Neck. Of the 326 Commonwealth servicemen buried in the cemetery, only 10 are identified. It is likely that Reg Richardson is one of the unidentified graves. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Trooper Reginald Wallace Richardson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We particularly appreciate your visit despite the challenges posed by COVID, and we wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.